Okay, boxing fanatics, welcome to the 13th episode of the Boxing Fanatics podcast. Today, I want to give you my thoughts on the fight between Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Eubank Jr. emerging victorious with three identical scorecards of 116, 112, and coming away victorious. When this fight was first announced, I think many people, myself and many other, so-called hardcore boxing fans, did kind of scoff at this fight a little bit because I think if we're being honest, it was a little bit forced. Everyone knows they're not in the same weight division. There was no real collision course there because they could have easily gone their separate ways. Eubank Jr. could have easily fought for a middleweight world title. Conor Benn could have easily fought for a welterweight world title. So going into the contest, I was one of the people that was just a bit skeptical, like, oh, this is so forced. This is a bit of a gimmick, and, it's going to attract a casual audience, but it's doing nothing for the hardcore audience. And I guess, it was a little bit, myself and others were a little bit negative when this fight was announced. But I can honestly say what an amazing fight that was in the end. And I think they proved a lot of people wrong, really, with that fight. An amazing fight, an amazing contest. Possibly one of the best British fights we've ever seen, to be honest. It was thrilling from start to finish. And in the end, they showed it wasn't much of a gimmick at all. I thought like both men really, sounds weird to say, but they really wanted to win. It's like they fought as if they were really fighting for their family legacy. In the early rounds, I was really impressed with Conor Benn's hand speed and athleticism. I thought he was rapid fast in the first few rounds. Obviously, the much younger man to Chris Eubank Jr. and obviously the smaller man as well, but incredibly fast hands, really athletic, good head movement. And Chris Eubank Jr. did struggle, I think, in the first few rounds to kind of pinpoint Benn, who was just so fast, so athletic. He was faster than him. There's no two ways about it. And Ben really impressed me. Eubank did start to time him a bit later on. I thought the jab from Eubank was really nice. Really nice jab. Was just kind of finding the target quite well, actually, despite the head movement from Conor Benn. So a really nice jab, and kind of the odds, he was kind of picking his punches quite well. But I guess early in the round, I think this fight was just competitive throughout. And, there's always so-called controversy. I'm going to say it right now, that I don't think there's any controversy with the winner here. I think definitely the right man won the fight. I think Chris Eubank Jr. in the end just landed the cleaner punches. And I think towards the end of the fight was just, dominating Conor Benn a little bit on the front foot. And I think that was really interesting because at the start of the fight, Eubank really was on the back foot, and he was just, like I said, picking his shots and timing Benn. But then he sort of just kind of threw that tactic out the window and then just started coming forward, just imposing, and he just turned it into a kind of a bit of a street fight, really. He just kind of came forward, pushed Benn on the ropes and was just unloading bombs on Benn. And Benn, but in fairness to Benn was firing back. It was an incredible fight. Unbelievable fight. And credit to both men. I think they both done themselves really proud, and they both proved a lot of people wrong. I'll say again, they proved a lot of people wrong. And what an amazing performance from both. I think before the actual fight started, I definitely want to touch on when Chris Eubank Sr. came on the screen. I think that's got to be one of the best moments in British boxing history, because in the lead up, everyone just thought they weren't on good terms, and Chris Eubank Sr. has been very dismissive of the fight. He hasn't been, complimentary about it at all. He's kind of said it's a joke and it's disgusting, and, they're in separate weight divisions, and he's even called his own son a disgrace and all this stuff. But when he emerged on the screen and they came out of the elevator and you saw Chris Eubank Jr. there and you saw Chris Eubank Sr. behind him, I think what a moment that was. What an incredible moment that was. That gave me goosebumps, definitely. So that was a brilliant moment. And I remember thinking in my head, I think Eubank Jr.'s won this now. I mean, his dad's come to support him. I can't see how Chris Eubank Jr. is going to lose this fight. I think at that moment, that's when he kind of, quote unquote, won. So yeah, Chris Eubank Sr. eventually, in the end, coming to support his son realistically as he should have throughout. And I think it was nice to see him and Nigel Benn, old rivals, sitting next to each other watching the fight. I think it was a good look for boxing actually. Two rivals sitting next to each other, watching their sons battle it out. Yeah, boxing is definitely a funny world, isn't it? For sure. And obviously another factor before the fight was the weight. That was a massive factor, and that's one of the reasons, including myself, why I thought that Conor Benn had actually a good chance to win this fight. Because look, Eubank Jr. he's been at 160 for his whole career, and he evidently struggles to make the weight, and we saw that again this time round. You know, on the way in, he weighed. You know, after all the sweating and all that stuff that he did to make weight, he still couldn't make weight, and he missed it by so little, but he still couldn't make weight, and that just tells you that, you know, because he's very professional. Eubank, he always makes the weight more often than not. I can't remember. I think that's the first time I've ever seen Eubank Jr. miss 160 pounds. So he's very professional, and that just tells me that his body just really struggling to make that weight. That's just a hard weight for him to make, and so that was the reason why myself and many other people thought that Conor Benn had a chance. And it's hard to say whether that cut kind of really affected him in the fight, because Eubank Jr., I don't know if he was just fighting on pure instinct or just pure will to win. His work rate was outstanding throughout the fight. You know, for someone who supposedly, who did struggle to make weight, to fight as well as he did in the latter stages of the fight, coming forwards, pressing the action, and that's ultimately, I mean, he won by around 4 rounds, but still, he definitely won the last 2 rounds. So that really cemented the victory. So it's difficult to say whether he was really hindered by that cut or not, because we have to remember that he probably didn't have enough time to fully hydrate, but he still had a fair amount of time to hydrate, because obviously the next day weigh-in was early in the morning, so he kind of had the rest of the day to kind of hydrate, carb up, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, very, very interesting. And in terms of Conor Benn, I think he deserves a lot of credit this fight, actually, because I think as well, going into this fight, we weren't really sure where Conor Benn's level was, if we're being honest. You know, his best win was over Chris Algieri, who was a former world champion, but let's be honest, was kind of past it. And he hadn't fought anyone of the caliber of Eubank Jr., if we're being honest. You know, he never fought anyone of that level. But Conor Benn was competitive throughout, and he was a smaller man, and he was competitive throughout. He won his rounds in there, and I think he even stunned Eubank a few times. So massive credit to Conor Benn. And I mean, I don't know, I'm thinking from that performance, I don't see why Conor Benn can't win a world title at welterweight if we're looking at the current landscape at the moment. Obviously, I would not back Conor Benn against Jaron Boots Ennis. Obviously not. Ennis is a pound for pound. But against Mario Barrios, I think that's a winnable fight for Ben. Against Brian Norman Jr., I think that's also a winnable fight. So, it's not against the realms of possibility for Ben to win a world title at welterweight, against the right opponent based on that performance. It's really, it's really quite interesting. So Ben, it'll be interesting to see what happens next really now, because realistically it was such a good fight, and more often than not what happens is when there's such a good fight, we're going to see it again. I think Chris Eubank Jr., he's at the latter stages of his career. I'm just not getting the impression from Chris Eubank Jr. that he wants to fight for a world title. That's what he should do, in my opinion. He should build on that, and he should, the last fight of his career should be for a world title, against the middleweight, because, I think the middleweight division is not great at the moment, and he's got a chance. But I would not be surprised to see this fight go again, because there's just so much money at stake as well. That's realistically what it is, and the public are going to want that fight again, because it was an amazing fight. There's no two ways about it. It was an incredible fight, and I think there's a good chance we're going to see it again. I mean, but again, there is scope for both men to go their separate ways. I'm just not sure if that's realistic, just simply because, like I said, it was such a good fight. And yeah, once again, shout out to Eubank Sr, Nigel Benn, legends, absolute legends. You know, they started that rivalry 30 years ago, and to see their sons reignite it in a, in a good way, to do them kind of proud, to definitely do their family name, to bring honor to their family name was great to see. And overall, just a fantastic event for boxing. Really captured the imagination, and yeah, it was just a great fight. It was just a really, really good fight, and I think it definitely exceeded expectations. That's for sure. It exceeded expectations. I don't think people were expecting such a competitive, such a thrilling fight. And obviously the rest of the card was great as well. There was a lot of good fights in that. So overall, a great night for boxing. Obviously, there was some stuff in the build-up, but we see it all the time in boxing. We see a lot of, unsavoury stuff in the build-up, and then at the end, there's all respect. It just kind of sells the show. But overall, I think it was a very good night for boxing. And from what I've heard, everyone's come out safe and healthy. So that's the main thing. So thanks a lot, guys, for listening. If you enjoy this podcast, by all means, like, comment, subscribe, and yeah, I'll catch you on the next one. Cheers.